Welcome to the Filmsteins, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience and the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier grants the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmsteins, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience
all around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmsteins. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my problematic friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmsteins. Some recent episodes include Monkey Man, The Green Knight, Civil War, 1917, and our recent Patreon exclusive episode covering the first season of Amazon's Fallout. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas over on our Patreon. Come request a movie. Come subscribe for $1. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we're discussing Julio Torres' new film, Problemista. I've been looking forward to this movie since I think its original release date was back in August. It got delayed for one thing or another, had a hard time finding its way to theaters across the United States. The closest I saw was Kentucky, way too far out of the way. It recently found its way to VOD, snagged it, watched it, underwhelmed. It's okay. I like some of the pieces moving here. I like the two characters. The film feels pretty personal, and that might be to a fault, for me at least. And this weird landing, borderline admiration of Elizabeth, Tilda Swinton's character, is a little bizarre. I expected a little bit more than a surrealistic kind of take on an immigration story, and there still might be, but I had a hard time finding a lot of what I like in this movie. This movie is a me movie, I think, on paper, trailer-wise. But I feel like we lose a little bit of our centerpiece here, Alejandro, and focus a strange amount of time on Elizabeth. I don't know if you feel the same, but how do you feel about Problemista? I know I've been putting this in your ear for several months. We're going to see it, and then we don't see it, right?
Yep.
How did it turn out for you, man?
Yeah, this was definitely a weird movie. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And I don't know if I'm exactly somewhere in between, because that doesn't feel quite right either. But the more we watch surrealistic movies, I don't know if I like them. And even movies like this that have some surrealistic elements sprinkled onto them, in this case, more than sprinkled, it's like you're sprinkling and then the top comes off, but I don't know. I'm not quite sold on them. You have movies like Eraserhead and The Lobster and even some of the newer ones we watched like Dream Scenario.
What about Poor Things?
That's where I'm a bit confused on, because I loved Poor Things and I loved Beau's Afraid. So I don't know. But I feel like I'm more on the no than the yes.
I think you're more on the yes than the no, actually, because of just the hit and miss ratio you've been developing here.
Because you also have movies like Landscape with Invisible Hand that also feel on a similar level to this, maybe on that too personal note, that was just a big miss. So I don't know.
I totally get it. There's a lot of moving parts in the genre of surrealism. Its dreaminess can be a hurdle. Its messaging can be a hurdle. Its nature of beating around the bush can be kind of a hurdle for some. Not that all surrealistic films, share all this.
Right.
But I think surrealistic imagery and cinematography and messaging is just by nature very hit or miss. Very hit or miss. And I think for most people it leans into more of the misses.
But it feels like these movies are so loved. Maybe not Invisible Hand, but...
Yeah. See, that borderlines into like a dystopian kind of surrealism. And I think this does too a little bit. This one's definitely planted in its dreamlikeness, though.
Yeah, I think that's why I want to say it's kind of sprinkled in, because it's not quite. But then there's some sections that I'm like, I don't know.
No, totally. And I think the core of surrealism usually lands in its dialogue and having to interpret exactly what's being said underneath what they're saying.
And maybe I don't want to work that hard for my movie. But then I do when it comes to Poor Things and Beau is Afraid. And I don't know, maybe I'd have to rewatch Eraserhead. But that one also has similar anxieties that the surrealism brings,
yeah, totally.
like Beau is Afraid.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. I don't know.
And it's really just worth saying that making a surrealistic film through writing and visuals is just, frankly, a really ballsy thing to do, because your confidence in your ability to sell the message is apparently pretty high. And, creating anything with some kind of intent or message it's risky business. It's not going to land with everyone, obviously.
Yeah, it might be one of those movies that you just probably have to see at the right place, right time. But with this movie, I felt like it covered a great number of themes that just left me all over the place, because we have, artists, because we have like the views of artists and creators, and then we have the Karens of the art world, and then we have standing up for yourself, and then Hispanics immigrating to the US, and then we sprinkle in some, complications of the job market and people stealing your ideas.
Yeah.
So I was just a little confused on the messaging and what Julio was trying to make the audience feel here. And maybe we can unpack it together. Unless you're as confused as I am, then maybe that's just a confusing thing. But I do like quite a few things in here, like the characters. I thought they were hilarious. Did we know what to do with them? I don't know. But the characters themselves were pretty awesome. I did like some of the humor here. And I know very rarely we talk about titles of movies, but this title was pretty good. Either titles are just okay or not relevant to the movie. Like, just not important, I guess. Maybe not relevant, but just not important what the title is.
Yeah, like, what is a Gran Turismo?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. 1917. All right. You thought really hard on that one.
It's funny, the title thing, because something like 1917 feels inherently a little pretentious and, like, bigger than life.
Powerful.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're, much like just the surrealistic kind of visual nature, there's something bold in naming something like 1917. It's different than something like Dream Scenario. Dream Scenario was something that Nick Cage's character was going to name his book or his publisher or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so with stuff like Dream Scenario and even Gran Turismo, you kind of need to be in the in group to get it, right? To get Dream Scenario as a title, you really just have to see the movie because it's pretty explicit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gran Turismo, video game adaptation, cool. But how did you take Problemista?
Well, the suffix ista, I-S-T-A, typically means someone that's really good at something. And I mean, and really the first word that comes to mind with the ending ista is fashionista. And who are those? Those are like the people who know a lot about fashion. And there's also this kind of connotation to it that they're kind of a little larger than life, let's say, and just really good at getting themselves dressed or looking put together, whatever. So here, Problemista is, someone who's really good at creating problems.
Yeah, and Elizabeth even is still visually striking like a fashionista would be. So we tie the language to the new invented word.
Yeah, it's like a Spanglish word, which is very fitting here. So I liked it. I thought that was super clever.
And if you look at the font, it looks like a dragon's tongue, or a hydra's tongue, I guess, or a demon's tongue even. It's pretty genius.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree.
Yeah, apparently Julio Torres is known for some of his comedy. He's got a few comedic specialties, and I think he's from SNL. And I'm with you in sort of being challenged with where this movie's landing. What is the ultimate message, if it has one? Because we land with Alejandro learning something from Elizabeth.
Yeah, which is what I think is the overall message, learning to stick up for yourself.
Yeah, but we're learning it from a very strange character.
Yes. The last person you want to learn how to stand up for yourself.
Maybe because Elizabeth comes off to me as very feral, and that she is having a hard time adapting to modernity and all the gizmos and gadgets that we have. She's used to older ways, and she's kind of really lashing out, and I guess is a really sympathetic character. And I think Alejandro feels something similar, being sympathetic for her, because she doesn't know how to adapt. And I know Julio Torres recently had a little interview with The New Yorker mentioning that his character was first and foremost an adapter, and that Alejandro, kind of plays within the rules because he is an immigrant and he wants to stay here, wants to get a working visa or get a sponsor. And so he's got to be constantly reading the room. But he finds something in Elizabeth really attractive to giving him purpose, I guess. Because why else would he want to be around her? Because I know at the very beginning you mentioned Elizabeth being maybe a little bit of a Karen.
An art Karen, yeah.
An art Karen, which I get, but there's something really sad about her too. That's a little detached from the Karen personality. There's something very feral and desperate about her. And it may even happen before, before Bobby died. Because it sounds like she was the way she is with Alejandro, the exact same way with Bobby, her late husband. So, I mean, she's just a strange-ass character. But there was a lot of little things I do love, like how Bobby's storage room is bigger than Alejandro's bedroom, how Alejandro needs $6,000, but he's not legally able to be paid.
Yeah, I guess I have some kind of personal connection to that, to being an immigrant, coming from immigrant parents, all that stuff. So there is that sense of maybe control, or maybe control is not the right word, but that sense of someone having just the right to say whatever they want to say. Because Julio is right. You have to kind of adapt and learn to shut your mouth in a lot of situations, because the last thing you want is to draw attention to yourself. So you almost admire these characters that aren't afraid to speak their mind, and almost like how I wish I could also speak my mind and be able to say, whatever. So I think that's where some of that admiration comes from. But at the same time, like you said, her character is so chaotic and unorganized and feral, like you said, that it just doesn't come across as sweet or admiration
Or
anymore.
charming.
Yeah.
Like, how is Alejandro charmed by this woman?
But he is, though, like, so charmed, and you can see it throughout the movie, yes, but then the end is what kills me, with how just in love he is with her. Like, man, this woman changed my life. And it's just so crazy. It's so crazy. That's the part I don't understand.
And these are the parts that start to feel less messagey and more just like a dream. Like, there's really no rhyme or reason. It's almost a subconscious kind of dumping. Unless Julio's specifically making fun of that kind of immigrant or person who admires someone as chaotic as Elizabeth. Because that might... Because that's an extremely personal thing, perhaps. Like, or very specific at the very least. With... or someone he knows or something, you know?
Yeah. Because, I mean, she's too insane. And I don't know how you cannot call her a Karen when just some of the things she says are just not okay. Like when they're ordering at the restaurant and she's like, hello, are you going to take my order? I've been waiting here all day. And she had just come there.
That was a pretty Karen move, I will admit.
Was a very Karen move.
But her saying please and then turning to Alejandro and, like, you know, telling them that they like to be told please, it's a little morsel for them to chew on, feels much more controlled than like a Karen would have.
I don't know, man. Because who thinks about that?
Elizabeth.
Karens.
Manic people.
Karens. Are Karens manic? Maybe that's the better question.
Yeah, that's a question.
Because who calls up Apple when they can't get something to work on their phone?
Someone... See, this is a funny thing. It's such a fine line, maybe. It doesn't... It feels like she's just having an extremely hard time adapting to modern stuff. And she just... like, wants some real connection. Because there's that one moment where she's like, human being, human to some operator or something. Which is very familiar. We all know people like that. But there's something desperate in her to just... I don't know, maybe connect.
I don't know. I don't know. Because then when Julio tells her that he's vegan, and she's like, oh, you're vegan. Well, who else is vegan? And then she's like, someone awful. It's like, why you say that?
That was a weird thing to say.
So there's a lot of moments. But, I mean, one of the biggest one is her at the little tram thingy. I don't know what that thing's called. The thing that, like, the zip line tram. I don't know what those are called.
Yeah.
And she goes off. And that's when his admiration, like, if it was at a level 6, that's when it goes to a level 10 on how much he admires her. And she sounds like a bitch. That's a total Karen move. That's something someone could have pulled their phone out and filmed and recorded and it'd be on TikTok. And that's a Karen. There were just too many moments.
That's fair. And maybe the lesson here is to place yourself in those Karen's shoes.
Maybe that's the lesson.
Because again, she's very desperate in that moment. She literally is desperate in that moment.
Is she though?
Yeah, because she's trying to get this dream and to ultimately keep her late husband alive.
We're all trying to complete our dreams and no one needs to react like that. But I guess that's what Julio learns, that sometimes you do need to react like that to get your dreams. So I don't know. I don't know what the message is. Because there's also something hopeful in this movie with them freezing themselves to come back later on in the future to finish whatever or to keep living, I guess. That kind of background messaging. And then art representing that in some sort of way. But then I'm confused because then there's art all over the trash.
Yeah, this is that other surrealistic kind of thing that takes place. It feels like everyone in this world is an artist in one way or another. The only regular job person we have is the paralegal.
Because we also have Bingham, who doesn't do anything. He's just helping out because I think his dad told him to, because he totaled the car or something.
Yeah, what is the point of Bingham? He disrupts their relationship a little bit. He becomes cannon fodder for Elizabeth to try to piss off Alejandro. Doesn't really work.
I just saw him as this character who can be compared to Alejandro. They're both boys of 30s, I don't know, late 20s, maybe early 30s, who have to be in this world. But unfortunately, Alejandro is an immigrant and has to have a work visa, and he can't stay in this country to pursue his dreams unless someone sponsors him. And then we have maybe the other side of that, someone who was born in the US and has everything kind of handed to them. We don't know a lot about him. We don't know his struggles or anything, but just the tidbits we got, he's pretty entitled, and he's not going to adapt. He's not going to give Elizabeth her way, and he's basically just going to do whatever he's going to do. So maybe just having another character on the flip side. For what? I don't know. Maybe again, it's that personal level that maybe he knows a guy like this. Who doesn't, right?
What's the point of Alejandro's mom popping up? She kinda...
Another theme? Letting go of your kid as a parent, and specifically for her, having her child in another country. And maybe that kind of impact it has on him of needing to grow up that fast without your parents' help.
We also see that repetition of him going into the cave and having to face that challenge. And that first challenge, I assume, is coming to New York, trying to make it happen. And then we get a literal echo of it at the very end where he has to finally face Elizabeth, the dragon. She almost makes me think that her repetition throughout the film is this symbolic memory or dream of Alejandro of not forgetting where he comes from and not forgetting the reason he's there to express, his self through toys. Because she seemed to pop up most when Alejandro was also most worried about whether or not he's going to get a sponsor. And so it's almost like this voice in his head is his mom, and then we're seeing those thoughts that kind of ground him. And him entering the cave and facing what's in the cave was just a reminder of how his mom raised him.
Yeah, I like that. It's like that nagging voice in your head that tells you all these principles and morals and whatnots that your parents taught you throughout the years that you have to now instill in yourself, especially him that he's in a new country. So I like that.
And I also take his living situation with several people and him having to sublease his room just to pay rent, give it to someone else. It feels less like he needs money and more like he's that uncomfortable to be at his place where he's paying rent to sleep. He's so unwelcome that he feels like he can't even go into his room because he's just uncomfortable in this scenario, because I'm sure he wants his own place, right?
Mm-hmm.
He definitely doesn't want to be cramped up with these hooligans.
I know I briefly mentioned in the beginning of the episode that I really like the characters here. And I think my favorite character is definitely Alejandro, because I just love everything about him. He's so awkward, and just his cadence and how he talks, even how he walks is so like positively awkward, because he has a bright outlook on life. He's going to do whatever he needs to get done. He's going to, do the cleaning boy job. He's going to get it done. Will he speak up about it? Maybe not, but there's still this perseverance and positive vibe about him that I really like. I do not like Elizabeth's character at all. She's too much for me, which detracts from how much I liked him and all these other fun bits he's in. Like in the beginning where he accidentally unplugs the backup generator. And that on itself is funny, but what's funnier is that the backup generator is there in a very trippable place that anybody can just come and unplug. It's like, what the heck? Okay, that was funny. And I also like the moment where I think he's overnighting some CDs and he needs to pay for them, and he swipes his card and it gets declined. And just something about that is so funny and almost relatable. Very relatable to me, because it just feels like you're making all this money and, you get a paycheck and it's nice. And like him, he's doing all these odd jobs on Craigslist and getting paid for him, and we see his bank account go up. We visually see that. And then all of a sudden he's in the negatives. Like, what? And it's like, man, that's me every other week because I get paid bi-weekly. And I'm like, what the crap? I thought I had like $700 in here. Now I'm like negative 400 in. And it was just so funny. Especially that very intense scene when he does swipe his card and it's like processing, and then it gets declined. And if you've ever been in that situation, man, you feel that like processing and then like, oh shit, is it gonna get declined? And then it's, declined or accepted or whatever. And then next time you just have like this little PTSD about it. Like, man, I hope it doesn't get declined. Even though you have the money, it's like, you never know. And that might be some of that like awkwardness or maybe some of that like anxiety that he obviously has. But I just love his character. And I wish that it would have been better paired with Elizabeth's character. I don't know. It just...
Yeah, I'm there with you a little bit. I like Elizabeth's character. I mean, she's despicable, but she's sad, and it's hard to not like her, I feel, because of Alejandro's affiliation with her. But she seems to take the stage a little too much. And that may be in part because of Tilda Swinton's presence. She's just a powerful person on screen. But she sort of is our main character.
Yeah, the title, right?
Yeah. And like I said at the very beginning, I think we get so much of her to a fault.
Yes.
I wish we could have gotten more of Alejandro and a little bit more of his, those mundane things that happen, especially when you're in a position like him where he needs to get sponsored. It's expensive to get sponsored. He has no money, but he needs $6,000. So he has to do all these odd jobs, but he still has to pay X, Y, and Z. And he has to basically babysit this crazy woman. It's a funny combination of things where we just seem to not get enough of the central piece. Because I guess, yes, Elizabeth is the reason for everything, basically. I guess it's kind of a is and isn't situation with these two characters where they aren't and they are the main character, independent of each other. So what does the end mean when he wakes up into the future with Elizabeth and they reconnect and he's way older now? And
I don't know. I have no idea what that end is. That he admired her all these years, that she was his spirit animal all these years. No clue.
It almost feels like it's a literal and dream representation of like conquering the nightmares. Like he's standing up against the dragon. For what end? I'm not sure though, because it is the end now. I mean, he lived his life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little befuddled by the ending there.
Because some of my least favorite parts were when Elizabeth was involved. She was too chaotic. She made me anxious. I didn't care for the relationship. Maybe I didn't have enough sympathy for her that I didn't feel bad at one moment. It was almost like having a narcissistic parent that you have to take care of. Like, okay, let's take your keys out of your bag so we can find them so you can quit fucking yelling at me. Like, I don't know. It was too much for me, I guess. But I did enjoy some of the scenes they had together, but not quite as much as some of the stuff he had to deal with on his own. And even the scene that I mainly enjoyed with them together was when Dahlia was reading that letter that obviously Alejandro wrote for Elizabeth on behalf of Elizabeth. And she was reading it and she was kind of reacting to her reading that letter, and then you find out that she had no idea what was in that letter. That was pretty funny. But that wasn't even her. That was Alejandro writing that letter. So that shouldn't even count.
Yeah, but her hiding behind the wall and
Yes.
It was good.
It was good. And I don't know about you, but I didn't like the Craigslist dump. I'm not sure how to take that. It was a little bit weird. Okay, I'm not going to say I didn't like it. I take that part back. But it was just a little too weird for me. that's again maybe where this surrealism just gets to me a little bit too much.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that's too surrealistic. It's kind of a...
Like, is this Craig?
It's old Craig. I liked it because when you go onto things like Craigslist and like the deep parts of Reddit and 4chan or whatever this nonsense is, the dark web, it's just an uncomfortable place sometimes, and you never really know what you're gonna run into.
And you see, that's why I don't step anywhere near those things, because I don't want to feel like how I felt watching that. Like, I'm just not gonna deal with that. Not gonna deal with that. And even with the cleaning boy job, like, that I didn't get until we were in that scene, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that would go on Craigslist, wouldn't it? Okay. You hear all these stories about people finding roommates on Craigslist, and then
terrible things happen.
They get murdered. Yeah.
Because it's kind of funny because there's something gross and a little taboo and pornographic about those sections when he's in this visual Craigslist metaphor representation. Because people who have porn addictions will often, like other drugs really, will just be on the prowl for that next fix. And some things just don't hit like they used to, and so they need to go on to the next thing. And things just get weirder and weirder over time, potentially. Not for everyone, of course. But then you have those moments where you come to, excuse the pun, and you feel a little gross about what you've done. So there is something just weirdly pornographic, I think, about those Craigslist sections.
Okay, so maybe it's just a different type of humor that I just wasn't vibing with, I guess. I did, however, find all the Hispanic immigration nods and jokes super hilarious. Like him banking with Bank of America. Like, everyone knows that's where Hispanics have their bank accounts at Bank of America. Everyone that goes in there speaks Spanish. I mean, my parents have a Bank of America bank. Everyone in the family does. Like, it's so known that every Hispanic in the US has a Bank of America account. Is that because they're one of the few banks that don't require you to be a US citizen or a legal resident? Maybe. And that was just funny. And her just kind of saying, "No, I'm loyal to Bank of America," and like blowing her head out. Like, what? I didn't get that part, but that was pretty funny.
I think that was just another example of the detachment we modern people have, and how automized some things are, and how things need to be by policy. And it's a weird emphasis because we even see it with the waiter a little bit, like just this overt niceness that's completely inhuman. And it's just another one of these things that I guess make me feel for Elizabeth.
You don't like nice people?
No.
That's fair. And one of the other ones that, this probably might be my favorite, is the lawyer guy asking him if he wanted to be a paralegal and work there, and how you basically don't need anything. You just need to speak English, and send a few emails. That was hilarious, because anytime you go to some kind of immigration services for them to help you with your work visa or your tourist visa or your citizenships, like whatever immigration process you need, you always have these like Hispanic girls that don't know anything. And that's hilarious that someone thought of that to put that in this movie. That's probably my favorite part. And in the beginning section, one of the paralegals is speaking Spanish to a lady and telling her, like, your legal status is up, I don't know, whatever. And then the lady disappears. And then later in the movie, there's this other lady that's speaking Spanish to her, and she doesn't know what she's saying, and Alejandro translates. And like, what, all of a sudden you don't know how to speak Spanish? Girl, like, what? That's hilarious. It was so funny. And it's like such a very specific thing that you needed to have been a part of to get. It killed me. And I don't know if that's like paralegals everywhere. It could be. I don't know. I only have knowledge of immigration paralegals. So I get that nod there. But oh my God, that was hilarious.
I thought that was genius.
Yeah, some of these girls don't even know how to speak Spanish. But they can help you with your legal stuff. With a high school diploma. With a GED and being able to send an email. And the last thing I want to say is that the score was pretty good. It was very eerie, almost. It was weird. It was weird, like the movie. Especially that introduction. That introduction, little sound, whatever that was, I liked it. I thought we were going somewhere with the introduction. And we did. We went somewhere, all right? They knew what they had. And they tied all these elements together. Did it fit for me? I'm still not sure, even after talking about it. But I did realize a lot of the funny little things that I liked in this movie.
We might be facing one of the problems when a filmmaker approaches a story with the comedic mindset kind of front and center before its messaging.
That's fair. Yeah, I can see that.
Because we don't seem to really land anywhere of any consequence for any character or any reason other than maybe it being relatable here and there, and especially maybe for Julio.
Yeah, because whether you've been an immigrant or not, you've been in a tight spot with money, or you've been in that awkward situation, or you are a vegan, or if you're not a vegan, but you've still gotten the wrong food at a restaurant and been like, well, I just keep it, I'll eat it, it's okay.
Or you lack purpose.
Or you like purpose.
Or you're drawn to crazy folks.
That's a good one. There are those people out there that are drawn to crazy folks. Or you're trying to get a fucking job, whether you're on a visa or not. Which, that's insane. A month to get a job?
All right, man. Well, thank you for watching this strange movie with me and talking about it here today. Do you have a budget guess?
My budget guess is $7 million. I don't think it quite hit 10, but I don't think it was on the 5. And it's a debut film, so always go on the lower side for those.
Well, it says here that it was 12 million.
Okay.
So you were a little low.
Not too bad.
Almost half.
Shit.
Well, over on Letterboxd with 44,000 people, they weighed in at a 3.9.
3.9?
Yes, sir.
That's too high.
It's a little high, and it's a little... come on. This movie's not that visually interesting for you to, just love it like, I don't know, The Northman, right? If you don't get anything else out of The Northman, it's one of the most beautiful films you'll see.
I don't know about that, but...
I don't even think it's that high. I challenge anyone to tell me what this movie is ultimately about and where that messaging is told.
Yeah, 3.9 is pretty high, but I don't know what I'd give it. I was leaning towards a 3 just because of how I was a little stuck in the middle, but I'm still not sure if I would even give it a 3. Maybe I'm leaning 2.5, but I'd have to think about it.
Yeah, I'm stuck in between 3 and 2.5 as well. There's a lot of fun things. There's a lot of boring things. There's a lot of incoherent things. It's missing its sticking point, and it's a little too personal to a fault. So I don't love it. It's okay.
It's okay.
But yeah, man, thanks again, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmsteins. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on patreon.com/Filmsteins, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, and YouTube. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas in our Patreon. Come request a movie. Come subscribe for $1. Come right in. Go rate us on Apple Podcasts, please. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmsteins. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmsteins, signing off.